Hello and welcome to Frank's School. Well, we're going to begin with class vocabulary. That's something I said for years over and over again with my classes, because I would begin the class with class vocabulary, and it would take maybe ideally 15 minutes, and then there would be the rest of the class to do something else, and that divided the class period into two, and I could kind of get a double effect of teaching because they were different. There was a gimmick that in the public schools they always came through with these gimmicks. What did they call them? Something that would jolt students at the beginning. I can't remember what the catchphrase was, but it was a little bit like that. That way, well, anyway, we're going to begin that way. And since I don't have anybody contributing words yet, maybe I will, we'll see. I'll pretend that Frank's out there. I'll say, well, okay, does anybody have a word? And there's Frank. He's a high achiever, or at least he tries hard. And he's been reading through Christmas hymns. And he came across chide, slow to chide. Well, this wasn't actually a Christmas hymn. This was another hymn, slow to chide and quick to bless. So I say, okay, what's the word? Chide. And I wrote this all down already, partly because I'm doing it myself. Chide. Is it spelled right, Frank? Yep, spelled right, so I underline it. What's the context? Slow to chide. Okay, now I usually stop using the quotes. They should really be there because these should be quoted. The kids were not to make up their own context. They had to bring the word in. Oh, and if you want to have a better explanation or another explanation of how this system works, first year 28th day first video, second year 104th day first video, and now I'm in the third year 99th day first video. Those were the starts of my other efforts to get class vocabulary going. And I want to say that this was probably the most effective trick that I had in my bag of tricks as a teacher. It was so much fun. But so far I haven't been able to get it going online. We'll see. Anyway, okay, that's slow to chide. And then I might say, all right, Frank, where did you come up with that word? Just checking. Oh, I should say, too, I eventually included documentation. Ideally, this would be with a footnote, a 1 and a 1. And where did you get that word? And he would have to say that was in Praise My Soul, the King of Heaven, a hymn. And I didn't ask for the publisher, but I usually would say, what's the book and what's the page number, which I'm not going to do here. And if they had it, say, oh, can't take that word. You got to document it. Why I did that? Well, it was to teach documentation and good scholarship. But also I had students that were ornery. And after a while, they began to make stuff up to see if they could get it past me. And that was when I decided, all right, if they're going to play it like that, I'm going to teach them academic responsibility in a sense. Anyway, all right, slow to chide. Is it spelled right? Yep. A lot of times I'd save the etymology for last. Does anybody out there know what chide means? And I'd go around the class and I'd hope to get some guesses. Well, before I do that, I'd say, well, what part of speech is it? Not you, Frank. Slow to chide. And usually I would tell the kids, you should be able to get that, even if you don't know the word. That you should get. Now somebody might think it's a noun, preposition, prepositional phrase, but no, this is an infinitive. This is a verb. It means to do something. Slow to chide. No. So does anybody know? And I'd say, Frank, is that right? Yep, that's right. Transitive verb or intransitive verb, I usually stop short of that. The kids would be puzzled. The dictionary would say VI and VT. And, you know, even though I taught grammar, I could not assume that they would know it. But verb, yeah. Anybody know? I'd have various guesses. Frank, what's it mean? It means to punish. It means to punish. As a matter of fact, well, now see, here's what I always used online. You know, nowadays, there's kids that don't even know the alphabetical order nowadays. You know, so they have a lot of trouble with the dictionary because they don't know how to look it up. You've got to know alphabetical order. But anyway, Frank over there already should have this written down in his notes prepared, so we don't have to slow up. But anyway, I do have the page marked. And when you look up chide, you get a selection, of course. It says a verb, and it'll to speak out angrily or displeased, to speak out in an angry or displeased rebuke, to voice disapproval, reproach. I always wanted the kids to say it in their own words if they could. So I'm going to say speak out angrily or criticize. Criticize. And what I would do too is I always get mixed up with English, British English and American English. I would adjust it myself so that I had a definition that the kids all understood. And Frank was supposed to come with one that he understood, not just copy it out of the dictionary and not understand. All right, so it means to criticize. And etymology. Anybody want to guess where did that word come from? What language did that word come from? And the kids would guess. And they'd go around, and I would guess too. And I think I already looked. I'm almost certain it comes from Middle English. That probably would have been my guess anyway. And I look here, and it comes from Old English. Yeah, so it goes further back. It's a very old word. In Middle English it was there. But I asked the kids to go back as far as they can with it. Not give the whole story. And elsewhere I teach them how to read the etymology. All right, thank you, Frank. Anybody else have a word? Nobody's got a word. So, but Frank, he's there. He's really trying. So, all right, what's your word, Frank? Second one today. And you say brood, and I'll write it on here. And say, is that spelled right? Yep. All right. Underline it. And at that point, the kids should be writing all this stuff down. I mean, every kid needed to come with a pen. A pen. I mean. A pencil, ultimately they would not get the same credit if they worked in pencil, because a pen is a permanent medium. If they spelled it wrong, if say they wrote down who like that, well, that's not the way you. That's what you say. So yeah, no problem. You just strike it out, and you write who. I mean, a lot of times that amazes kids. That you mean you can just do that and that's okay? I said, yeah. They're afraid. I used to be like that. I get nervous at the bottom of a page when I was writing in pen, because if I made a mistake, I had to write the whole page over again. When I was a little kid. No, you just strike it out and it's like it's not there. It's quicker than erasing pencil. Anyway, brood, okay, got that right. And the context? Who didst brood upon the chaos? Whoa, Frank, what were you reading? Who didst? There's that second person singular archaic form of did. Didst, who didst brood upon the chaos? What were you reading? Oh, and by the way, this here's the man who wrote that. And Frank says, I was reading hymns. This comes from Eternal Father Strong to Save, a hymn. Oh, wow, that's a good source, a hymnal, wow. Who didst brood upon the chaos? And I would write that out, and the kids should write that out. Okay, what part of speech is it? And they should know. I should go around and sometimes I say, you write it down, what you think it is. Write it down. And then I'll tell you. And if you write down, some kid writes down noun, he thinks that's a noun, a brood. That's a collection of chickens or something. And I'd go back and say, Frank said, well, it can be a noun, but here it's a verb. So no problem, you just strike it out. It's a verb. Didst brood upon the chaos. Chaos. How many of you know what chaos means? Some would, but that would have been just fine as a vocabulary word too, I think. But so, to brood is to do something. It's a verb, so it means to do something. Does anyone know what it means to brood? And some farm kid might say, well, I think a chicken does that with eggs or with peeps. Yeah. Is that what's meant here? Well, probably not. And I'd go around and let him try, and finally go back to Frank, and he'd say it means to ponder, to think deeply. Now this one I also have already marked. I hope I can be a little quicker here to find it. Who didst brood? Brood, okay, it means sit on eggs, yes. But it also means to think gloomily or to ponder. To ponder. Where I'd say, all right, meditate or worry. Now, I would say, okay, kids, if you know what it means to ponder, there's a good, if you don't know what that means, well, then say think hard, ponder, meditate. And this ideally would be supplied exactly like that from my student Frank. Ponder, meditate. He pondered upon the deep. You know, time out. The poetry in these hymns is really something. God is the one who didst ponder upon the chaos. The poetry in these hymns is so cool, but unusable in public school. I said about that earlier. All right, anybody want to take a guess? Or where'd you get that? Oh, I think he said, and here's the guy that actually wrote it. Etymology, and online you could pause and write something down and take a guess. What's that look like? Where do you suppose that comes from? Well, you know, I'd let the kids guess, and I'd say, it doesn't look like Latin to me. I guess I'd go with Old English. Old English, and it is, I have looked at these before, brood. And you have to go up, actually, you have to go up to the noun to find the Old English, and it is Old English. Interestingly enough, I think it meant yeast, like what makes bread rise in Old English. So it also is Old English. Old English, Anglo-Saxon is another name for that language. Thanks, Frank. You're overachieving today. Anybody else have a word? Frank's got one. He's into this. He likes his vocabulary words. Chastens. All right, and I'd spell that. If I could, I wouldn't always get them right because I didn't know what the words were. And I'd say, is that right? Yep. This has got 2 syllables. So I say, well, which syllable is stressed? And sometimes I'd go around the class, listen, chastens. Which one is stressed? Sometimes kids couldn't say, which is be weird. If somebody would say, well, the second one, I'd say, well, that would be chastens. Do we say chastens or chastens? First syllable stressed. And I did it with a double line because that way it didn't confuse the accent mark over. Chastens. All right, what's the context? He hastens and chastens. I think I have that backwards. I think it's he chastens and hastens. He chastens and hastens. All right, well, sorry about that. Because I think I said elsewhere that when we would sing that at Thanksgiving, it was alphabetical order. That's how we always got that right. He chastens and hastens his will to make known. I might say to Frank, oh yeah, I know that. We used to sing that around the table, my family. And so let me guess, hymnal? And maybe Frank could say, well, no, it wasn't in the Lutheran hymnal. I had to go to a hymnal called the Covenant People, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I found it, and it was written by a guy named, translated by Baker. And if you want to know more about this hymn, you know, you can go back to, I discussed this. You know, I'm working out of that corpus of language that was so rich for my purposes through December. All right, chastens, and it's spelled right. Write it down, kids. They write it down. What's the context? He hastens and chastens. I'm sorry about the mistake. His will to make known. What part of speech is it? What do you think? He hastens and chastens. It should be blatantly obvious. And if kids couldn't spot this as the correct part of speech, that indicated that they did not know grammar. Usually by this time I had taught them grammar, as had maybe 6 other teachers before they got to me, but I had taught them thoroughly grammar. That is morphology, the 8 parts of speech. If they don't, and yet there were many kids, that high school seniors, if you'd say to them, what's a noun, I'd have no idea. You know, I once said it became like driving a bent nail with grammar. Once the nail bends, it doesn't matter how many times you hit it, it's not going to go in, it's just going to get further bent. And, so rather I said, you do better to pull a nail out and start a new nail. It was one of the reasons I taught grammar in such a different way by the time the kids came to me in either 7th or 8th grade. So anyway, certainly it's a verb. Anyone know what it means? Oh, and where did you get it? Anyone know what it means? They might or might not. Well, Frank, what's it mean? It means to punish for the purpose of correction, to discipline, to punish, but to make better. And once again, this is God. God does this. He chastens. So how to say that in short words that we understand? Punish, and something else I would do. I would put an ES on here to make it parallel. Punishes to correct. That might work. Punishes to correct or to improve. Okay, and finally the etymology of it. Where does it come from? Go around and look. Now this looks a little bit more like it might come out of French or maybe ultimately out of Latin, and I take it as far back. And my own guess would probably be Latin. Now I have looked at it, but I don't remember offhand. I do remember it's related to chaste. Chaste. From Latin, it comes, or wait. Well, let me see if it says something different from chasten. Chasten, the verb, comes all the way from Latin, which means I'm sorry, from the Latin to make. Well, it's two things together, I think. Well, yeah, I never made the kids tell me exactly what it meant in the original language, although I showed them how to see. I just don't want to take the time. So it's through that French root it came into English, chastens, and it is related to chaste, which means never having had sex. It's related to chastise. A chastisement is punishment. All right, now at this point I would say, okay, who can put chide in a sentence? And now they didn't want to do their homework, but somebody over there, Susie, she says, I'm going to chide the class for not having vocabulary words. Good. And I would get about 3 or 4. And sometimes they wouldn't be right. And brood, can somebody say? And there's Susie again. I'm brooding about this problem of getting vocabulary words. Good, Susie. You're an overachiever, too. How about chastens? Mr. Anderson, I think you should chasten the class for not all having vocabulary words. Good, Susie. Do you have one? Well, I will tomorrow. She says. All right, I go through and get 2 or 3 sentences for each one, and then the fun begins, and then the kids start to come to life. I can say, all right, who can put 2 of them, your choice, any 2, in one sentence? There's Susie again. I'm going to brood before I decide to chasten the class. Good. How about one that includes chide? All right, now, Elizabeth's over there too and says, wait a minute, I'm into this here. I chide you for brooding too much about your lost homework. Good. And then I'll say, all right, can anybody put all 3 in a sentence? And at this point, kids would come to life. And here's where class vocabulary really was beginning to generate a level of sentence structure that the kids would not normally come up with. And they really liked this. And I'm going to stop. I'm going to wait because maybe somebody, one of you viewers, will write me a comment and just put in there a little sentence. You don't even have to say, here's my comment. Just say, see if you can put all 3 of those words in one sentence, still in the sentence, proving to me that you know what each word means. And concise. The shorter, the better. Now, later on, I invite kids to say, all right, no, let's put a simile in there, or let's put an allusion. Or how about some alliteration? All right, but I'm going to stop. So this isn't quite over, and I'm going to take a day out, teach something else tomorrow, and then come back with new words, or maybe you'll even submit a word. So here we go. I'm inviting you to join. I have, in a typical day, I have about 100, 110 people will look at one of my videos, and I have about 8 that seem to be following my videos day by day. Well, you 8 who do that, please, join the fun. Okay, see you tomorrow.